Welcome back to Ego and Empathy, the podcast where we explore the psychology behind human behavior and the subtle ways it shapes our lives. I'm your host, Mandy, and today we're diving into a subject that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. One that can be just as painful and confusing as dealing with a narcissistic partner or parent. Today's episode is about narcissistic siblings. What it looks like, how it feels, and how to recognize when something in the dynamic isn't healthy, even if it's been that way for years. At first glance, sibling rivalry can seem normal. Brothers and sisters tease each other, compete, and push boundaries. That's part of growing up. But when narcissism enters the mix, it's not simple competition. It's emotional warfare dressed up as family connection. A narcissistic sibling doesn't just want attention. They need control, admiration, and superiority. They want to be the one who shines. The one who defines what's real and what's not. And if you threaten that, even unintentionally, they'll find ways to put you back in your place. Let's look at what this can sound or feel like in everyday life. You might share good news, maybe you got a new job, a promotion, or started a relationship that makes you happy. And instead of celebrating with you, your sibling says something like, "Oh, must be nice to get things handed to you." Or, "I guess they'll hire anyone these days." They turn your moment of joy into a quiet stab of guilt or self-doubt. That's not normal teasing, that's subtle devaluation. Or maybe you notice that every conversation somehow circles back to them. You mention something small, and they top it with something grand. You say, "I've been going to the gym." And they respond, "Oh, I just ran a marathon." You say, "I've been feeling anxious lately." And they say, "You think you're anxious? Try living my life." You're left invisible in your own conversation. That's not sharing, that's dominance disguised as dialogue. A narcissistic sibling might also manipulate through triangulation. Pitting family members against each other. Spreading half-truths. Or turning one parent's affection into a contest. They'll say things like, "Mom always said I was the responsible one." Or, "Dad told me he's disappointed in you." And whether those words are true or not doesn't matter. What matters is the control it gives them. Sometimes the manipulation is more subtle. They may play the victim to get sympathy, saying things like, "No one in this family ever helps me." Or, "You're all against me." And because you were raised to care, you try to comfort them. You offer your time, your energy, your understanding. But it's never enough. They drain you, then blame you. And here's where it gets even trickier. Sometimes a narcissistic sibling can act loving, kind, and supportive. They might show up when you're in crisis, say all the right words, and make you believe things are changing. But soon after, you notice the familiar pattern again. The competition, the criticism, the guilt. You start to wonder, am I overreacting? Maybe they're not that bad. That's exactly where the confusion lives. You see, narcissistic siblings often alternate between affection and cruelty. It keeps you emotionally hooked. You remember the good moments, so you excuse the bad ones. But the truth is, consistency matters more than occasional kindness. If someone constantly leaves you drained, anxious, or doubting yourself, it doesn't matter how charming they can be in between. Now, sometimes the signs are smaller. Like constant one-upmanship, backhanded compliments. Or the need to control family gatherings. They might dictate who gets invited, who sits where, or what topics are allowed. You find yourself shrinking to keep the peace, because confrontation feels pointless. That's not harmony, that's control. And then there are the moments of doubt. The times you tell yourself, "They're my sibling, it's normal to argue." Or maybe I'm too sensitive. But let me remind you of something important. Your feelings are valid. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right. No one else gets to tell you that your pain isn't real. You don't owe anyone constant forgiveness for behavior that keeps hurting you. So, how do you deal with a narcissistic sibling? The answer depends on your situation. But it always begins with awareness. Start by observing without reacting. See the patterns for what they are, not isolated moments, but consistent tactics. Keep conversations short, neutral, and factual. Avoid emotional debates, they thrive on those. And when possible, set boundaries. It might sound like, I'm not comfortable talking about that. Or, I need to leave this conversation. Simple, calm, clear. And if you can, limit access to your emotional world. Don't share your secrets, your struggles, or your plans. Because a narcissistic sibling often uses your vulnerability as ammunition. And remember, contact is not an obligation. You don't owe anyone continued access to your life. Just because you share DNA. If the relationship harms your peace more than it heals your heart, you are allowed to step back. You are allowed to choose distance. To protect your energy. To prioritize your own well-being. Family doesn't always mean safety. And love, real love, never demands that you tolerate pain to prove loyalty. If you're questioning whether your sibling might be narcissistic, trust your intuition. The mind can rationalize, but the body never lies. If every time you see them you leave feeling small, unseen, or tense, that's your answer. So here's your reflection for after this episode. Think of a time when you left an interaction with your sibling feeling uneasy. What did your body feel like? Tightness in your chest? A sense of walking on eggshells? That's your signal. Write it down. Honor it. And remind yourself that your feelings are information, not overreactions. You are not the problem for setting boundaries. You're the one brave enough to stop pretending. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and tap the bell icon, so you'll be notified when new episodes are released. There are many more episodes on narcissistic family dynamics, the scapegoat, the golden child, and the patterns that keep these cycles alive. Till next time.